And welcome to PWT Talk NXT. We're talking NXT Roadblock here on the PWTorch Daily Cast. March 11th, 2025 is when this episode of Roadblock takes place. I'm Nate Lindberg. You can check out the things I do at natelindberg.com. Kelly Wells is not here tonight. Kelly's got some stuff we're doing for work, heading to Dallas tomorrow. A lot of things going on. So we weren't able to watch the show or write the live report, which I did at PWTorch.com. If you'd like to check out what happened with NXT tonight and my thoughts on what happened on the show. Although I will be obviously talking about all of that shortly. So since Kelly is not here, both Jobin and Kevin have both said to me separately that they'd like to do a show with each other. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do that. Even though it was a last minute thought. Sorry, Jobin. I texted like Jobin at like 9:30, like 30 minutes to go in the show. Like, hey, want to join? Like, all right, let's do it. So here we are. Here we are. So Kevin, Jobin, or actually, let me first. Yeah, Kevin, who are you?
Well, hey there. I am Kevin P. Cattani. You can find me all over the Twitter and other social media spots at KP Cattani. Love to talk wrestling, love to talk fantasy gaming, love to talk brain health. And, wrestling, if wrestling doesn't blend all three of those things, damn it, then what does it do? So, very honored to be here, Nate. Thanks for asking. And Jobin, I can't wait to do the show with you. So, let's rock and roll.
I know. I've been super excited. I'm Jobin. I've been friends with Nate for a really, 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 really long time at this point. I don't really have anything to plug, so refer to Kevin's and whatever Nate eventually says.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, no, Jobin and I like high school. Even though we didn't hang out in high school, we started hanging out in college.
Yes,
but
it's been like what, 18 years now?
Yeah, it's been very long. I don't like to talk about that. We don't bring that
up. Stop with the
we
time
don't bring
here.
that up. All right, but chat is absolutely bumping tonight. Hello to everybody. CJ, Sean, good to see you guys. Good fella. Brock, everybody. We got Noon Mountain hanging out with us tonight. I'm just going through naming people. Ryan Solario's in there. I don't know. There might be more. Might have missed you. If I did, I'm
did
sorry.
We say hi to CJ yet? Hi, CJ.
I did. I did say hey to CJ. So we had a show tonight, NXT Roadblock here. This was a fun show. I really enjoyed this. Main event. Actually, let me run down the card here. I'm going to do this Greg Park style. Why not? We had Fraxiom versus the Hardy Boys for the TNA Tag Team Championships. Roxanne Perez versus Jordynne Grace. Then we saw Moose versus Oba Femi. Oh, now of course my dog wants to go out. We saw Jevon Evans versus Ethan Page. And then our main event, title for title, NXT Women's Championship and the NXT North American Championship, Julia versus Stephanie McCurr, which saw Stephanie claiming the victory in 11 minutes and 20 seconds and becoming a dual champion, the first dual women's champion in NXT with those two particular titles. I believe it was Vic that pointed, it might have been Corey, but one of the two pointed out on commentary. It's the first time that a woman has held, there's been a dual women's champion in WWE since Becky Lynch did it. And he said the time frame, and now I'm blanking on it, but a while ago, it's been a bit. So kind of a cool and historic night here for NXT, for Stephanie. Especially after one banger of a match. Let me go. I'm going to throw over to you guys real quick before I talk about the match so I can let Corbin out. So, Kevin, take it away.
Where are we starting? Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the women's match. With the women's match, yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah, I will echo your sentiment that if anything could be called a banger, that match was definitely it. I think two of the best women wrestlers in the world squaring off in the same ring. My wife and my two girls were kind of popping in and out while the show was going on, and all made comments to how cool and how lively the crowd looked. And so I think that really helps the atmosphere feel really electric. And so the crowd was in it. The women put on the heck of a show. Frankly, I'm quite surprised by the result, and I'm largely sitting in the camp now that maybe this was the result that will lead to Julia now going up to the main roster. I don't know that they will. I mean, they could obviously do a rematch, but it doesn't seem grudgy or blood feudy to the point where they would need to. And so maybe this is Julia's call up, and they're going to let Steph run the show for a little bit. But I thought it was a great show. I think one of the things I really loved, and maybe you guys picked up on it too, and I think if anybody has been watching LFG, and if you're not, you should. I think it's a great sort of look behind the curtain, if you will. But when the LFG show goes to matches, all the folks who are not participating sit in the stands, and they started bringing back the one fall. And so tonight, as Mike Rome was announcing the women's title match, he's like, this is a championship match set for one fall, and they all said it, and he even paused to let them say it. So I'm glad that's coming back. So now we just have to wait for the 1-2 sweet on the pin count that they used to do in early Black and Gold NXT. And so we're slowly bringing it back. So yeah, I thought it was great. I'm happy to see what Steph can do with 2 belts. And yeah, I'll tag out.
Awesome. Okay, and Corbin just decided to come in. So Jobin, I'll throw it to you.
All right, good timing. Good timing, Corbin. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot more specific to say about the match. I was also a little bit surprised that they went with Stephanie, but like you said, Kevin, that is very, very possibly her chance to go up to the main roster or take a little break, one or the other. Be nice to see her go up to the main roster. I think they could use her really, really well. Plus, it's not like there's a lack of women to fill any spots in NXT right now. All of them have excellent things that they've been doing. So it's exciting to see really any of them do, or to get more TV time. But that's really probably all I have.
Sure.
On that excellent match.
Yeah, no,
Nate, hang on.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go for it.
CJ asked in the chat while you were gone at some point if we could. He wants to ask a Bayley question. So at some point, let's remember to let CJ ask his Bayley question. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Actually, I did see that. Yeah, CJ, right towards the end. Throw it in, and we'll get to it for sure. But no, so yeah, this match, Stephanie and Julia, I think this is probably my match of the night. A bit of an unexpected, like I was a little bit surprised with the finish as well, but like I was thinking about it earlier today. I could make the case either way for Julia or for Stephanie. So either way, I was going to be okay with the outcome and whichever way they went. I also kind of think this might be a call up for Julia. I don't know. Like I don't know what else she can really do in NXT at this point. I mean, there's plenty of women that she could feud with down there, but already being the champion, it almost kind of feels like a downgrade, I guess. And I feel like they'd want to capitalize on her star power and kind of her momentum right now up on the main roster. Stephanie, also a great talent, very deserving of this title, this win and this kind of honor of being the first dual NXT and North American champion. Something that, as far as I'm aware, and you guys, I'm sure either the two of you or in the chat will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think only Keith Lee has done that, right?
I was going to say, she's the first woman to do it and the first since Keith Lee did it.
Yeah, okay. I was pretty sure he was the only time that was dual champ. Like for something in the back of my head saying Gargano, but I didn't think that was right. But yeah, like I said, probably my match of the night, and that's saying something considering the quality of matches that we had here on Roadblock tonight. Let's kind of go through the chat. The chat's bumping. I'm having trouble keeping up with things here tonight.
It was a good night. People want to talk about it. That's exciting.
Right? Ryan Solario, Stephanie vacated 2 belts.
And Nate.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to overstate, but this really felt like a takeover. Like, I know it was like a special show in terms of its title, but like the match quality, the number, like it really had, I don't want to oversell it, but it really did have a takeover feel. So I think, sorry, quick, I'll go back to Brock. I was going to say when I was chatting about the match that it did look like maybe Julia was moving. I don't want to say a step slow, but like I wondered too if maybe she is hurt in some way, and so rather than have her sitting around with the belt not defending it, they want to put it on somebody who's ready to rock and roll, and they'll come back to it. I think that maybe what Brock was talking about is that Julie was the one that was hurt. So if that's the case, then let's rest her up because she needs to be out there. But I did notice a couple times in the match that there was mistiming or a weird transition, and so I wondered if maybe she wanted to get out there to like do justice to the title, but knowing that she might take a breather here for a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, and like I think it was Noon Mountain a little bit earlier. I just had it up on screen. You mentioned something about a wrist injury. That was even before we started talking about potential injuries with Julia. I hadn't heard anything about that. Granted, today and yesterday I've been completely out of the wrestling bubble with other things. So if something was reported for that, I probably missed it. If that is the case and she is injured and that's why they went this route, yeah, sure, give her some time to rest up, makes sense. The good way to take the belt, good way to kind of go forward with this and then build momentum for Stephanie if Julia is injured, because then if they take her off TV for a little bit, it's going to be a little bit out of sight, out of mind. I'm sure her name will come up here and there. Stephanie will bring her up, other people might bring her up, but then obviously when she comes back, she'll be bigger, better, stronger, and make an impact, and maybe even make an impact on TNA. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I had to throw the pun in there. I don't know if that would really happen. I just really said it for the pun. But yeah. So a lot of positivity around this match here tonight. So there we go. Thumbs up there. Let's go to going through my notes here. Let's go backwards. Jevon Evans versus Ethan Page, New York City street fight. This was a blood feud come to potentially an end. I don't know. We might still see some more out of this. It did kind of feel like a satisfying conclusion to the match before the attack by the mysterious group, and we'll get into that in a second. But it did feel like a pretty good conclusion for this match. Or for this angle rather, with Evans kind of getting one up on Page after Page ruthlessly attacked him at that show in Lowell back in December and broke his jaw. Did it a couple times, made him bleed, even though it was very clearly blood capsules and stuff, which I'm glad they used. I don't want to actually see people get hurt, but it was very deliberate. Anyway, that was beside the point. But yeah, as far as the story goes, I think this is a pretty satisfying conclusion to it. The match itself, I thought, was electric right out of the gate. Both of them brought some energy here. That's what I mean. It's tough to say what my favorite match of the night was because I really enjoyed this match too. Stephanie and Julia may have squeaked out a little bit, but this one's right there, as was Femi and Moose. And so somebody in the chat brought that up. I think it was Brian brought that in the chat up a little bit ago. I can't keep up. It's in there. I'm trying to bring it up. There it is. Sean, I found it. I put it up on screen. Sean did say his favorite match is Oba versus Moose. And that might have been my third favorite of the night, but on any other night, it probably was my first. That said, let's throw first over to Jobin on, of course, as you're taking a sip of your white monster, because that's your jam. Let me throw over to you on Jevon Evans and Ethan Page.
I mean, it was nice to see them really get a chance to go at it, because lately I feel like it's been one jumps the other, or which is fun once in a while, but not to do every single time that they encounter each other. Having a straight up, no rules, but still a straight up match is really nice between the two of them because they're both excellent at what they do. I do like the like slightly more serious Jevon that we've been getting lately. I get the impression that he just is a fun, happy, bubbly person, but that more serious, like more focused version of him for this character, I think is doing really, really well for this particular storyline anyway. Love a table spot, couple of them. He had some nice bouncy moves. Yeah, I mean, overall, just a really good match. I think I'm going to say that about every match tonight because they were all really good matches. It's been a little bit since I feel like we've had a show this stacked top to bottom.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's all I've really got.
All right, Kevin.
Well, and do you know, Jobin, great point. And I think what's interesting about this card, and I'm going to put the TNA folks like Moose on the level to say the show was amazing and had no main roster. Like there wasn't a need to boost the show with any main roster cameos or managers. Like this was all internal slash TNA crossover. So like I wouldn't say I wouldn't count that as main roster or anything. Like I think, they sent two of their champions to this show, and I think everybody looked good. I've seen several comments about Jevon's seriousness, and Jobin, you made the point. I almost wonder, is this what I've heard Wade and Todd and others talk about how they would have loved to see Kofi take on a more serious babyface tone. I think this can be that. Like he really did come out to work and he was still cheered and did the babyface stuff, but like he was about business today. And I think if he can sort of keep that edge with how athletic he is, he's going to be tough to beat. And let me just say too, wow to Ethan Page. Like certainly Jevon is a freak athletically. The way the elevation he gets off of his jumps and off the ropes and all this. But Ethan looked fantastic. And I think if there was a veteran carrying that match today, it was him. And he looked like he was, I'll say, having a good time, but like he looked like he was really into it. And I think when you get two folks that are dedicated to try to steal in the show that way, how can you have a bad match? There was a comment earlier that I totally agree with, that poor Jevon took the lion's share of that outside table spot. They both still sold it really well, but I think had he not, I don't think that table breaks because Ethan wasn't that far on it. And so like he kind of had to reach out a bit to break the table. But I loved that match. I thought it was a fantastic, I wouldn't even call it a contrast of styles. Like I wouldn't call Ethan a high flyer, but I don't think he looked out of place at all. I think we're going to be sort of mumbling over ourselves all night, but I think that was a great piece of work, and I hope that they do cross paths again, but I don't know that it needs to be for a while now because this was kind of a great exclamation point to allow each to kind of move on to the next.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with that. I felt like the energy that they both brought to the table here was very satisfying in terms of a conclusion, which kind of brings me to the next thing, which was then kind of derailed by this mysterious faction. They haven't really given it a name. The only actual person that we know is a member of this is Dion Lennox, and I think people online have been talking about it, and I know there have been names floating around, but I don't know who they are offhand. But this faction comes out and brutally attacks Jevon Evans and stands tall over him as they cut to a commercial break. Now, what do you guys make of this faction? Obviously, Dion Lennox is involved, and he's a guy that I was really hoping was going to do something and do something soon. When I was at the NXT Lowell tapings, Dion Lennox came out, and his reaction was so not there that even though I'm sitting front row, I just thought they were playing music in the building because we were coming from a commercial break. I didn't even realize he was making his entrance. That's how little people cared about him. But he's such a great talent. Like he ended up winning the crowd over with his wrestling. But I really wanted to see his character develop. And then very shortly thereafter, we kind of started seeing shades of like a heel turn or something for him. Now he's got this full on, I don't want to call it an invasion because it's not really an invasion, but he's got this group that he's with, whether he's the leader or not, I'm not sure, and kind of wreaking havoc on NXT randomly, it seems. What do you guys think of this so far? And any idea where they might be going with this? I think I went with Jobin last time. So Kevin.
All right, so firstly, BJ, don't you dare tease Alistair Black. I will geek out from here to White Plains if you keep that up. Um, uh,
Same.
well, self-servingly, I don't want him a part of this group. He needs to go to something more high profile, but even just hinting that he could show up, that would be fantastic. I like what I've seen from this group so far. I think, yeah, Moon, great value shield, love it. Love a good great value mix in. And I was going to say, as Noon just said about Retribution, they have to be really, really careful. Shawn Michaels and Road Dogg and these other producers behind the scenes to toe the line very carefully that we're not trying to reinvent the Shield. Boy, Retribution was a dumpster fire, but can we have sort of this lawless group that just sort of comes in and wreaks havoc and leaves? Um, and I don't know that they need to be tied to anybody yet. I think what they're doing, like they're presenting them really well, right? Each of them got a spotlight tonight before they came down to the ring. Like I think they are investing the effort into them. Um, but I think that the slow burn is necessary because if they are, in fact, three green guys and Dion Lennox, who himself is on the green side of the spectrum, to throw them in the ring, they could end up being dead in the water like the Wyatt Six were when they finally started wrestling after all that. And so that's where I think they need to be really, really careful because I think this group could be very impactful. But yeah, you want to try to get rid of the retribution comparisons. You want to stay away from the Shield comparisons and just let this group go in, wreck hell, and get out.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was actually just going to say, and Ryan pops up in the chat saying this, the masks remind them exactly of the Shield, the ones they wore for WrestleMania, the ones that were really awesome and badass, and Vince hated and didn't let them wear again. Yeah, those masks. So there, you can draw a lot of comparisons to a lot of those factions that you guys brought up. But man, I'm hoping, because like right now for me it just feels like another retribution or something like that, and I don't obviously want that for the people involved. I want them to obviously succeed and be a driving force in NXT and what have you, and kind of get this gimmick over to what I think they want it to be. But they're not making a big enough impact, I don't think. Like they've done a couple things at the end of shows, but then they just show up like every other week or something, and they get maybe 15 seconds, or whatever, a minute or so of TV time. So yeah, I'd like to see them do a little bit more with this and see where this goes. But I trust in Shawn Michaels and the creative in NXT. So I don't know. I think there's a long-term story for this, and that you're just kind of building to it. But I'm hoping it doesn't get stale in the meantime. Um, let's
Well,
see.
sorry, before
Yeah, no,
Jobin,
no.
before you speak your piece. So in the most recent episode of LFG, they just did a faction thing. I think, Nate, to combat your idea of getting stale, um, I think they need to get a vignette or something out like ASAP. Like I
Yeah,
think there's enough people now, 3 or 4 weeks in, that are like, all right, who are these guys? All right, you know what I mean? Like they've had little things here or there, but like it's time for a mission statement. It's time to get to know who these guys are. And if they wait, like that's the thing is like if you wait too long to do that, then things are going to get stale. You're just going to go, oh, here come these guys again. And so, yes, I think to piggyback on your point, they need to let us know who these people are before they press too much further.
all right. And Jobin, did you talk about it? I don't think so.
No,
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 go
no,
for it.
no,
Go
that's
for it.
bad. So yeah, I think they should do that next week. Like this was a big enough. Like they've done a couple of things. They've come out. They've had some little scuffles at the end of shows, like Nate said. But like this is the first like big, or at least I feel like the biggest thing that they've done yet so far. So I want to see them do a vignette or something, cut a promo, something next week. Like that they really need to do something soon, because it, like you said, if they wait too long, people aren't really going to care anymore. Like you do this for another month or two, and then you drop a vignette or have them cut a promo, and people are kind of already going to be over it.
Yeah.
So really, for me, it's fine. What do we do now? Like what's the what is the point of this? Let's showing up, beating somebody up, fine. Give me some emotion. I need an emotion tied to this.
You need more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
We need a hook. We need something like, why do we care? Yeah, they come up, they show up, they scare. Ooh, they're scary. They beat somebody up. Give me a reason to care, positive or negative. I mean, obviously this is going to be a heel group, so probably negative. But give me something to hold on to.
Yeah, something that you can actually latch onto and get invested in this group in one way or another. Exactly. It's just not right now. It hasn't done anything to try and suck you in or get invested in this group. They're just kind of a nuisance right now. They don't feel like they're a threat to the livelihood of the NXT wrestlers or what have you, the day to day in NXT.
Yeah, and that's just because we don't know what they actually want. Like if we
Exactly.
knew what they want, then there's more gravity to the whole situation. Like I enjoy when they do this type of thing, but it's been, you said, several weeks, a month and a half. I don't know exactly how long ago that this started, but like give us something.
For sure. All right, let's move on here. Talk more about that than their. We probably talked about like 5 times longer than that with their entire TV time tonight, if not longer than that. So let's go to one hell of a match. 2 big dudes slapping meaty man meat or whatever you want to say. Moose versus Oba Femi for the NXT Championship. This, for me, there's one big disappointing thing for both of the matches that involve TNA titles here tonight. And it was telegraphed that the winners, were telegraphed by the simple fact of which title was on the line and that the other one wasn't. So I knew Oba Femi was going to win this. I knew that the Hardys were going to win their match. But that said, even though I was pretty sure what the outcomes were going to be, I enjoyed these matches so much. This one here, Moose versus Oba Femi for the NXT Championship, 13 minutes, 35 seconds in a night where we got about an hour and 5 minutes of wrestling, if I'm remembering correctly, because I seemingly I didn't close my tab. It was 1 minute, 3 minutes, 1 hour, 3 minutes and 5 seconds of wrestling tonight. This one, 13 minutes, 35 seconds. This, like I said, great match. Moose coming in from TNA. I'm not super familiar with Moose myself. I've never really been a TNA guy. So I've seen most of what I've seen has either been here on NXT or just looking things up and whatnot. Online, random things on Reddit, YouTube, and whatnot. This was a fantastic match. The two of them had, I thought, great chemistry together. They were able to tell a pretty good story going back and forth, who's going to overcome who. Like right at the beginning, the two of them are trading offense. They're kind of no-selling each other's offense and then hitting each other harder. So you really kind of knew if you were kind of coming into this match, maybe you're not a fan or you haven't watched NXT in a little while and you're walking into this match blind. You kind of knew that these were two big hosses going at it. And you're basically watching a war. You're watching a train wreck here. And that's kind of what this felt like in certain times. I do feel like Moose could have looked a little bit better at certain times throughout the night here. However, I'm going to put a caveat on that with, I think they were at commercial break every time that Oba seemed to get more offense in on Moose. And I say that because I'm now watching this on Netflix. using a VPN. I'm pretending like I'm in Canada. And they don't, with my tier of Netflix, it doesn't cut to commercial, but it shows me a timer saying their commercial break. So I don't know if you guys are actually seeing a split screen commercial,
Yeah.
break experience. You are? Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then yeah, but it was during commercial break where, Oba seemed to get a little bit more offense in on Moose and kind of seemed like he was the ruler, if you will, out of the two. Overall, though, I still think Moose looked great here, especially for somebody coming in from TNA. They've been making the TNA wrestlers look good. They haven't always been getting wins and things like that, but they still look strong coming out of the match, and I think that was what they accomplished here, at least as far as I'm concerned, anyway, with Moose and Oba Femi. Who did I throw to last time? I think it was. Okay, so then Jobin, I'll throw to you first.
Find my mute button. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot specific to add, really. Like you said, it's two big guys hitting each other real hard, which is not my favorite match type personally. I much prefer something more technical, more high flying. They both look strong, which is what you want out of two champions fighting. Some really good, really impressive power spots. Like the back-to-back power spots. That's great. That's incredible. Love to see that. Yeah, like you said, with these matches, they've been fairly well telegraphed who's going to win them, just because of what's on the line. What's on the line where? Given that it's NXT TV, they, at least until it happens for the first time, when they finally throw us the curveball where they have a NXT championship change hands on a TNA show or vice versa. Once they do it for the first time, then it could happen whenever. But until that point, most people are probably safely going to assume if it's a TNA title on NXT that no one's taking that from them.
You don't like slapping meat, Jobin?
Sometimes. Yeah, not like I said, not that I dislike the match or anything like that. Just certainly not my favorite match type.
No, you're more into like high flying and stuff like that.
That's why I tend to be bigger on like women's wrestling specifically, because generally speaking, that is more technical or high flying, versus just raw power. Which now we have Jordynne Grace and other people showing up. That's a little different, but.
Yes, that's very true. Very true. And then Kevin.
Yeah, I think that we need to call these style of matches the butcher shop if we're going to keep talking about meat, slapping meat.
All right, I like it. I dig that.
I'm a big Moose guy. I've wanted to see him in WWE. Like, I think his window to be like super effective is probably 5 to 6 years overdue at this point. I think he certainly has been very loyal to TNA. I also know a handful of years ago he was caught up in several off-court allegations, and so I think that also.
I remembered that.
That is, and then also in addition to that, he came to support Tessa Blanchard when she was going through her racist comments earlier, and kind of just stuck by the woman that she was, and I think that got him some extra heat. So I do think that there were some off-field circumstances that hindered his ability to get out of TNA, but nonetheless, I think he's a talented guy. I think this is the best version of Moose, because earlier iterations of him, I think he was carrying a lot more weight than he was probably comfortable with. And he is far more lean than he has been, and I think he certainly knows how to bring all the stuff that you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like to me now, mind the spirit of what I'm saying, and maybe not the words that I'm saying, but I think that folks like Moose and Oba Femi are what people hoped Keith Lee would be when Keith Lee came in, with just big guys that aren't supposed to be doing the things that these big guys are doing. And I think these two guys respected the heck out of each other. And I bet that before they walked out of that curtain, they looked at each other and said, hit me. Like, you are not going to hurt me. Like, let's do this thing. And I think they both look great. And I hope to see more of Moose. Like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I've been fortunate to meet him at a WrestleCon and a couple other, sightings and whatnot. But I would like to see him tussle with a few more of the heavy hitters in NXT because I think he brings a lot to the table.
All right. You guys can email the Torch, pwtorchnxt@gmail.com. As did David Podnar here tonight. Says the main event was good, but the biggest shock was that there was a clean finish with a winner. I'm assuming that they thought Stephanie connected better or was more comfortable out of the ring than Julia. From David Podnar. It's more of a statement than a question, but we talked a little bit about quite a bit about the main event already. Definitely wanted to get the email in there. Then we also have got one from good old JB. JB says, "Hi team, it's JB from Detroit." He's got three things here. First one being NXT seems to be going all in on these dark, mysterious stables all at the same time. Number two, Julia and Stephanie did seem to somewhat come out of nowhere. I heard a rumor that Julia was banged up and needed some time off. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me. And honestly, we just talked a little bit about that too, but I think that might be the only explanation that really makes sense other than them wanting to bring Julia up to the main roster. But which I think we obviously talked about this. I think she could go up to the main roster, but I personally think she needs a little bit more time in NXT. Or could use a little more time in NXT. Not that it's her wrestling or anything like that, but I don't know. Like I said earlier, I don't know what she has left to do in NXT, but
learn the production side of things more, maybe. That's
maybe,
really about,
but it just, I don't know, if it doesn't feel like it's time yet. And then lastly, he says, does Stephanie simultaneously holding both belts spell a bit of a Keith Lee situation? And I'm not sure what he means by that because I don't remember a situation revolving around that. I know the only situation that I can remember was that was during the pandemic, and Sangha, I think it was Sangha, took a picture of it and posted it to social media a week before it actually aired. That's the only like controversy or anything that I remember around that. So I don't know if anybody in the chat remembers a sort of a situation around that, but I'm not sure exactly what JB means by that.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to know his thoughts, but I wonder. You certainly you book yourself into a corner where now you have two levels of wrestler: the NXT North American champion sort of level and the championship contender levels that now all have to go through the same person. And so how do you keep her defined up when she's defending the North American title? Because like Keith Lee, there were matches that he wrestled where he was only defending one or the other. And so how do you keep her elite in the minds of the people you want her to be elite in front of when she's wrestling Fatal Influence or when she's, you know what I mean? Like you do get into that area. And I think Noon Mountain pointed out, and I think he's right. At some point, Keith Lee just said, well, here's the North American title back. Like, have a tournament for it. Let somebody else go to work with it because it becomes hard to have, the whole reason that you have multiple titles is to give multiple levels of folks something to fight for. And if all roads stop at Stephanie, that creates some issues for the lower caliber talent that might not yet be ready to take on a bright lights champion level type thing. So.
Yeah, I guess that probably makes the most sense. That makes most sense in terms of what JB's question was.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could see with that is maybe they have a specific person in mind they're trying to elevate, and could use that as an opportunity to do that. But I don't know how ultimately likely that is.
Yeah. No. All right. Well, that is emails. Like I said, you guys can always send us an email at pwtorchnxt@gmail.com. Let's
Hey,
keep.
Nate, do you want to give CJ his chance to ask the Bayley question in
Yeah.
the
All
spirit
right. You know
of
what?
reading emails?
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that then? I was going to save that to the end, but let's. CJ, feel free to throw that in the chat at your convenience here. We'll hit on that momentarily.
And while we're waiting, I would say Ryan just made a comment that I agree with. I think as they continue to put steam behind Jada Parker, it would make sense for her to perhaps hold the North American title and let her run roughshod over the ladies at that level.
Yeah, and we'll actually get into Jada Parker in a bit. There was a segment with Jada um, earlier in the night, and where she specifically calls out both Stephanie and Julia, and which she has been doing for a while now. Anyway, all right, CJ's Bayley question: are you worried about what they're doing with Bayley, or are you confident that she'll eventually get back to the World Championship? Um, I mean, I think that, I mean, you never say never. I mean, Bailey's the type of talent where, you know, she's going to make it back to the top. Not that I don't even think she's at the top right now. I mean, wrestling in so many different ways is cyclical. Whether that be, the fandom, you see really high times like now, you see some really low times like, I don't know, the 2015-ish era, building up to now. But you also see that cyclical kind of cycle with wrestlers, where they'll get pushed for a little bit and they kind of slide down the card. There's some obvious exceptions, your Roman Reigns's, your Cody Rhodes's, and Rhea Ripley's for the most part, and things like that. But Bayley's one of those where I think right now, she might be in a little bit of a downturn from, for what you might like for Bayley to be at right now. But I don't really think she's going to have any issues or anything like that. I think she'll come out just fine. Anything on Bayley, Jobin?
I mean, the only thing, like they're moving around. They're still giving her a lot of TV time, especially the stuff she's been doing in NXT or like more main roster stuff with like Roxanne. Um, and I think that role model gimmick plays a lot behind the scenes too. I think she's legitimately trying to be a helper, a teacher, that role model for all these people coming up through NXT. There's that side of it, and you have to bring people down to have them rise to the top again, because you can't rise to the top from the top if you're at the top all the time.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point.
That's all I really had there, I think.
Yep. And Kevin.
Yeah, and I think too, CJ, certainly it's no secret now who you are a big fan of. We can add CJ and Bayley to the Kelly Wells Dakota Kai Hall of Fame of people that we really like. But I also think too that part of it is, I think the hard part for us as fans, and they've reiterated this, and I'm sorry to go back to LFG again. If you can't tell, I'm liking the show so far.
I
But
gotta
they
watch
have
it.
set. I think you'll really like it. But the coaches have been saying this to these young people every episode, and my wrestling buddies and we talk about this a lot. So CJ, I'll pass it on to you. As fans, it's hard for us to gather this, but behind the scenes, wins and losses don't matter. This is not a real sport in terms of that. And so I think what we have to appreciate about Bayley, and I think someone just said it, she is a locker room leader for the women. I think she is very much the current generation's Natty. And just what I mean by that is she's very well respected. If you get a chance to work with her, that's a statement by WWE that you're at a level that allows for that. So I think yes, I don't like that she's losing either, but she's okay. You know what I mean? Like she's not. This is all part of the mix, and the fact that she's helping to put people over and she's helping to elevate others. I think that's kind of the gear she's in her manual transmission of a career here, where it's just she's looked to with respect. She can carry a great match. She's capable of being everything they need her to be. and they just don't need her to be champion right now. But she certainly is always right around that scene, and I think that's good news for her. I think when she starts falling way down the card, then it might be time to circle the wagons. But I think she's right at the top still. But I think she is very much living into her mentor era right now, if I can borrow from our Swifties in the crowd.
No, but I completely agree with you. I mean, not that I have any confirmation or anything of that, but like she is the type of person that wants to give back. I know she said that in the past, once she kind of gets along in her career, she wants to be able to give back. So, that's one of the reasons that I think she was pulling, double duty and working the main roster and working NXT for as long as she was. I mean, it was only a month and a half or whatever, but she's willing to go that extra mile to give back to the company or to the business that she loves so much. So yeah, I don't really think it's anything like, she upset anybody or whatever. I think, yeah, I think it's time for other people to shine right now. And she is just doing her part to make sure that happens. All right, let's get back to Roadblock here. Let's talk about the next match we got to talk about here, because we're going backwards. I've been going backwards all night. Roxanne Perez versus Jordynne Grace. We saw this match 11 minutes, 12, I can read, 11 minutes and 28 seconds. Jordynne Grace taking the win. Excuse me, I really, really enjoyed this match too. Again, there wasn't a match on this card that I think on any given night, if that was like, the match on the card, I think any of these matches would have taken like my match of the night spots. It's very hard to pick one. But I thought this was a fantastic match between the two. I thought Jordynne might have taken a bit more offense than I expected her to take from Roxanne. But if you're going to get to a 10, 11-minute match, obviously you kind of got to get that in there unless you're doing some sort of like a Brock Lesnar squash match type of a thing. But that said, I think that, like I said, that this was a pretty good match. The two of them, great chemistry. This is a nice little feather in the cap for Jordynne Grace. Obviously, getting the win over Bayley. Sorry, you were just talking about Bayley over Roxanne Perez. Former NXT champion. I think she's lost to Bayley. Or wow, I did it again. She's lost to Roxanne in the past, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of nice to get the win again. I felt like it was time. It made sense for Roxanne to lose here. Jordynne coming in with all this kind of fanfare, with the momentum from the Royal Rumble and all of that. She's a big signing, big signing. So Roxanne right now, she has 1 foot in the main roster. She has 1 foot here in NXT. I feel like she's doing what we were just talking about with Bayley. It's her time to give back. And even though she's the younger one, I guess Jordynne's the younger talent in terms of how long she's been signed to the company. Jordynne's been doing this a lot longer, but you know what I mean. Roxanne's the one that's kind of going up to the main roster. It's her time to shine up in the main roster. So she's making Jordynne look good down here in NXT. I thought this was great. This was a great way to continue Jordynne's story until she inevitably gets to the NXT Women's Championship. I can't imagine they're going to keep her away from the title for any length of time. I don't know how they get there right now, given the stories being told, but it's got to be sooner rather than later. She's a contender, even without challenging anybody for a contendership. All right, I think I went to Jobin last time, so let's go to Kevin.
Yeah, so I like this match a lot too. Surprise, surprise, I suppose. But I think, what I like about Roxanne, you can definitely tell she is trained by, she's trained by Booker T, but like there is very much an old school heel element to her that I think is refreshing because you don't see too many heels do, like she did the old school pick a body part and work on a thing. right? She kept working on Jordynne's knee all match long, and several times over the course of the match, you saw Jordynne fail to do something where she needed leg strength for. And I just think it's little bits like that that, for someone who is still so young, she's wrestling above her age. And I think that's not only benefiting her, but I think it's also helping her interactions with other women on the roster. It's just kind of fun to watch. Um, so, somebody made the comment earlier, and I'll agree. I do think that Roxy is a better babyface, but I also think in short order she'll be back on the good side of the roster because I think you know WWE loves a good redemption story, and so I think at some point she'll be double crossed by somebody, maybe Cora, but maybe somebody else, and she'll be like, well, wait a minute, maybe being a jerk isn't all it's cracked up to be. But for now, I really did like this match. I'm a big Jordynne Grace fan. I've followed her pretty extensively, and have just kind of been waiting for her to make the jump. And so I'm glad she's here. I think she looks like $1,000,000. I haven't heard her do a whole lot of talking in WWE yet. I think if she has a weakness, it's probably on the mic. But it's hard to deny her athleticism. But I also think too, and Nate, you pointed out the idea of it looking like, or the potential for like a Brock squash. I don't think that you need to book her as a freight train. She looks like one, and she can do all the power stuff you need her to do. But I don't think she needs to be doing any top tier squash matches in that way, because I think she's too good, and you can get too much more out of uh, whoever she's competing against because of the combined athleticism. So I'm excited to see what happens next. And Nate, I was going to throw you a curveball to say she could be one of those. Now, forgetting who it was. Was it Bianca? There were several black and gold women where you and Tom and Kelly and I and Bruce probably were like, oh, it's only a matter of time before they win. Obviously, they're going to, they're
yeah.
ready for the title. And they just didn't, and they got called up. I could see Jordynne being one of those who does not at all touch gold. Gets her couple of matches in, gets the WWE style under her belt, and then up she goes. I
Yeah.
don't think she needs the belt at this point, and I think if you want her to put gold around her waist, then let's get main roster gold around her waist. And not
I'm
that that
totally
needs to
fine with
happen
that.
immediately, but you know what I mean? Like, I think she's someone who is going to be in that main event picture for the next 6 to 8 weeks, but I also don't know that she needs to be the champ, because we know what she's capable of, and she will be on the main roster in short order.
No, I can definitely see that. I wasn't really thinking about the main roster call up when I was talking a little bit ago, but I think that might make the most sense. Is have her have a really strong run in NXT, let the titles do their own thing. Be kind of a separate story. With Stephanie, Julia, Jada, and all of that. I mean, Jordynne's already got the Royal Rumble. She's been in 2 women's Royal Rumbles at this point, so the main roster is already familiar with who she is. That might not be a bad idea. Jobin.
I mean, solid. Definitely excellent match all the way around. Roxy's great. Love Roxy. Jordynne Grace is definitely much newer to me. I've looked into her enough, and the things that she's already done since she's shown up, from the Rumble on, have been excellent. Really going to enjoy seeing exactly what they do with her. Lost my train of thought for a second.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So yeah, it's I enjoyed the match. A lot of really good offense back and forth. Especially where Jordynne is so strong and Roxanne is kind of tiny. It's really fun to watch that interaction go back and forth, because she can just do, like, she doesn't even have to try that hard to do all of her awesome power moves. So yeah, that was, other than it was real good, I don't have too much more specific to add that I think Kevin didn't already touch on.
Cool.
And also what I would add too, and I'm glad they showed the second replay. In the live shot, to me, it didn't look like Roxy got her head tucked for the finish. like it looked like a very late evolving power bomb or whatever they call Jordynne's move. And then when they showed that replay, like slightly to the 3/4 view, and you saw that she very much had her head in a safe position. But with the speed with which that happened, my initial thought was like, oh, no, 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 no. And then they very quickly showed the replay, and I was like, okay, calm yourself.
No, good point. Good point. All right, let's hit the last match here, which was our opening match. Fraxiom versus the Hardy Boys for the TNA Tag Team Championships. I keep doing that. The Hardy Boys went over 12 minutes and 8 seconds. Like I said earlier, the fact that the TNA titles were on the line, but the NXT titles weren't on the line, definitely telegraphed to me that the Hardys are going to be going over here. I still thought there might be a chance that Fraxiom could be that team or person, because it could be a singles title, that wins the other company's championship. But I didn't. I don't know. I still feel like it might be, when it does happen, it might be a main title. And I say main title, like the women's championship or knockouts championship or something like that, or the NXT men's championship or TNA men's championship. One of those. That said, though, this match I thought was fantastic. The Hardy Boys, while they've lost, I'd say maybe half a step as they've gotten a little bit older. They're still doing things that they've been doing for 20 plus years. Obviously, they're a little bit smarter about how they work, and you can kind of tell if you know what you're looking for. But you can tell they're a little bit smarter how they work. But I still think they brought it tonight and gave Axiom and Nathan Frazier one hell of a match. This, where the NXT title wasn't on the line, that felt, I don't know, it felt a little weird to me. It's just like, well, why are one of you guys putting up a title and not the other? And obviously, you understand why, for the reason I outlined earlier. You don't want to give one title to somebody in the other company just yet. But from a storyline perspective, it did seem maybe a little bit unusual for both this and the Oba Femi Moose match anyway. But overall, though, I think this is a great match to showcase both of their abilities. Somebody in the chat, and I was just looking for it, which kind of is one of the reasons that I was trying to, that was kind of stumbling over words there. I couldn't find it, but somebody in the chat mentioned earlier about potentially Fraxiom versus Hardys at Stand and Deliver. I would love something like that. Not only, just to get another Hardy Boys match in WWE, but I think the story with Fraxiom has been going for so long now that I think they deserve a match like that at Stand and Deliver. It doesn't really get much bigger than the Hardy Boys in terms of like a big legacy tag team like that that's still active. I really can't think of another off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody might be able to, but I can't right now. So I think it would be a great moment for Fraxiom if that was to happen. But like I said, this match was an excellent way to kick off Roadblock proper. Let me go to Jobin.
Wasn't this one for Kevin?
Oh, I don't know. Was it?
I can't remember anymore.
I don't remember.
Go ahead, Jobin. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
This doesn't matter. So yeah, like you said, excellent match. It's always nice to see the Hardys just go out there and do Hardy Boy stuff. The downside for me is that it's nothing we really haven't seen out of both teams. That's not much of a negative, really, because it's really, really good, wrestling out of both teams. But I don't it didn't wow me in that way, just because it's just, we've been seeing a lot of Fraxiom, and they're great, but we've been seeing a lot of them, which sometimes is a negative, or at least for me. That's probably about it. Good match. Yeah. Just some negatives on my side. Not I would say overall negatives.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. And Sean, I see your comment, and I'll agree with you that I think they, for as long as they are able to move in the ring, they will always get a nostalgia pop. They are so well thought of in general. And as a human, like from the human perspective, and I don't mean to get too emotional or verklempt here, but like I am legitimately just happy that they are both alive as human beings because poor Jeff has battled demons largely most of his career. And you can tell, God bless Matt, his knees are shot. There is not a lot left in them, but they can cover each other very well in terms of who does what and who takes the lion's share of the work. I'm just glad they're both alive. And let me just tell you too, being someone who was very shook by when Jeff Hardy was last in WWE and was getting that. I think he was an Intercontinental Champion. He was getting a push, and either had another DUI. It was something self-reckless off the court, and they released him. And looking at him these last couple weeks, both on NXT and just sort of in general, he looks so healthy. He looks so energized and happy to just be doing what he loves and not have to worry about all the things that maybe younger Jeff worried about. And I'm sure Matt is a big influence on that. And I don't mean to get away from the match and into sort of life, but I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that these are human beings and they are far more in the twilight of their career than Fraxiom. But I think they did everything they needed to do. Frazier and Axiom can provide all of the movement that you need them to, so they're fine there. And so I think it was fun. I'm glad that the Hardys won, right? Because it's their belts that were on the line. And I'll say this, and then Nate, please feel free to move on. I think this is a big supposition on my end, but I would sit in the camp that I don't think you're going to see a WWE superstar hold another promotion's belt because I think Hunter and Sean are very acutely aware of the train wreck that's happening in the other promotion in terms of like Chris Jericho being the ROH champ. Like they're just not booked in a way that either title is given the respect it would get on its own show on a different show. And I think in my own opinion, they would be hard pressed to have a dual champion in the way that you would see it more in the independents with like Matt Cardona having 6 or 7 different promotions belts, because those are far, they're not televised, they're not in sort of the mainstream in that way. And I think seeing how it's been happening across the pond, as it were, I don't know that they want to get into that business, and I wouldn't blame them. So that is just my own opinion, but I do think, I don't know that we'll see it because I don't know that they want to deal with what that could mean for either promotion in terms of booking and goodwill and that sort of thing.
No, and honestly, like I completely agree with you because all of that are things that have crossed my mind. Really since the announcement of TNA, the partnership between TNA and WWE, specifically NXT. But and like that, there's definitely one part of me that's like all in on that, and then there's this other part of me that's like they keep booking these matches, and I don't know how long this partnership is, but I know it was a multi-year long partnership. If they keep doing this, eventually, like 2 or 3 years in, nobody's going to care because we just know any match for a title match between TNA and NXT wrestler is just going to be whoever's the champion's going to win. So I don't know. But it's certainly. Yeah,
I think it has to happen eventually. Maybe not a long title run in either direction, but I don't see them not having to do it at some point.
Yeah.
I kind of tend to agree with Kevin more, but like then there's that part of me that's like, then what's the point that like they're gonna have to?
Yeah. No, and that's exactly where I am because if this was a Vince WWE, first off, I'd be very surprised that they were doing this whole partnership in the first place. But if this was a Vince WWE, I'd be like, there's absolutely no way that they would do it. But with Triple H, he's so much more apt to try things that Vince wouldn't, and kind of sticks the course with things and does a lot more long-term booking than Vince. And so I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a good story to be told there when somebody does win a TNA title or a TNA wrestler wins the WWE title. But like Kevin says, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to placate both companies and make sure that if it's a TNA wrestler showing up on NXT, with an NXT belt that that looks, or what I mean, whichever company has whichever belt is promoting it correctly. So I don't know. We'll see.
And Nate, quick, I'll Sean, you and I are on the same page. So in case you're worried about coming across wrong to me or not, we're on the same page here. And I was going to say on your one of your more recent points, I think that's the first time that Fraxiom has been pinned in a long while. Like, I think that's what the surprising part of that was less that the Hardys retained their championship, but like that's the first time they've lost in a long time as a tag team. And so I think it says a lot. It says a lot in general that those two guys are like, oh my goodness, yes, we will gladly take an L to the Hardys. Like there are no worse teams, or no, you know what I mean? Like they're the pinnacle of tag team wrestling in the sort of the modern era. There is no shame in losing to them. But yeah, that was like, I'm trying to think who the singles wrestler was that had not lost for a while recently and then lost, and everyone's kind of like, wow, that's the first time we've seen that happen, just sort of whatever. So I think that's what struck me about that too, was like they got pinned. Like it didn't cost them anything, but that's the first time they've lost in a while. So
no, that's actually a very good point. I didn't think about that. But yeah, that probably is the more surprising thing coming out of this. All right, let's go for home here. CJ, I noticed earlier you mentioned that you wanted to ask a general pro wrestling question. So throw that in the chat and we'll hit that in a couple minutes. But let me run down the rest of the segments that we had here tonight. And then if you guys have anything to say on them, feel free. Let's see. Jada Parker was talking backstage to Mickie James, who we've seen on LFG, asking for her advice for the situation between Julia and Stephanie and kind of where she should slot in looking for a title. We saw Stacks backstage talking to the family, upset that it was his fault that the Don lost the North American title. The Don walked into the room, says that they're the best. He's got a plan. Stacks is like, I've already got a plan. I've already arranged for a 6-man tag team between the family and Sean Spears faction for next week. The Don seemed a little bit upset that Stacks went over his head, but accepted the plan nonetheless. We saw a video package for Eddie Thorpe versus Trick Williams in the underground match next week. We saw an interesting Instagram story of Sol Ruca and Zarya in a rage room and throwing axes, and Zarya hoping to breed some rage in her tag team partner. We also saw
I do have a thing on that, Nate.
Go for it. Throw it in.
So when they did the video, I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, and you and Kelly didn't see the point. The point is that it's just a fish out of water, and that's funny to me, at least. You guys really weren't sold on it at all. I thought it was hilarious. Watching Zarya try and do normal people stuff is I thought was hilarious. And then now this week we have the reverse, where rather than doing normal people stuff, Zarya pulled Sol Ruca into a room where the point was to smash the hell out of stuff. So they're just doing like a little bit of back and forth there.
Actually, I forgot about that that video with them. So that does make
and
more
that's
sense.
all I had to add in there.
But Jobin, but that's your point is well met, because if I'm remembering right, remember when the War Raiders / War Machines / whatever they were at the time,
the Viking experience,
the Viking ambiance, and the New Day were like taking turns, like, here today you're going to come play basketball with us. And the Viking Raiders looked like the fish out of water. And then the Vikings are like, come on, we're going to go throw axes. And the New Day looked like they had no idea what the heck was going on. Like, it gave that vibe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, basically the same type of back and forth sort of video package off, if you will.
Sorry, I got thrown off by a work thing. I thought I had my Slack closed, but I didn't, and somebody messaged me, and then my brain went into work mode for a second. All right, we also had Fallon Henley and the other members of Fatal Attraction streaming at Ava, demanding a North American title rematch for Henley. Ricky Saints walked in and asked why everybody's so angry around here. He asked for a match against Ridge Holland. Ethan Page walked in on his way to the ring for his match. And he says that the NXT locker room doesn't like outsiders, directing that directly at Ricky Saints before walking to his ring for the match.
Says the outsider.
Says the outsider, right? We also had a video package for the men's North American champion, Sean Spears group. All of the members kind of talking about how the group has helped them find their way, had a very cult-like kind of feel to it. And we also had, last but not least, Sarah Schreiber interviewing Eddie Thorpe, sitting front row about his underground match with Trick Williams. Crowd was booing him so wildly it was almost hard to hear him. But after Eddie said the strong words about Trick Williams, Trick attacked him from behind, clotheslined him over the top rope, and then stood tall over his rival, kind of giving us some more fuel for that underground match. So anything on the, we get the Jada Parker thing, Stax and the family, Eddie Thorpe and Trick Williams thing there. Then we had the Fallon Henley Fatal Attraction, Ricky Saints, Ava thing, and then the video package for the men's North American Championship. The video package, for Sean Spears group, rather. Anything on any of that stuff, Kevin?
Yeah, I what I can say, certainly there are times where the off match segments kind of seem wonky or too much or over the top. I think they did a really good job tonight of introducing the videos, the vignettes, the interviews to keep those main storylines going, knowing that they only wanted the matches they had tonight. So I thought they were well done, well placed. Certainly nothing groundbreaking coming from any of them, but I do think for casual viewers, but then also for fans of any of those groups that didn't have a match tonight, you want to know that things are still moving forward. And so I appreciate that, and I don't think that any of them overstayed their welcome. And I'm looking forward to, again, once we're back in ordinary time, if you will, to see these stories progress.
All right, and we said we told CJ we'd hit one more question here, general wrestling question. Do you think that it is an old-fashioned opinion that a pro wrestling referee should not be too tall? I'm 6'3", and I've been told I'm too tall to be a referee for WWE. I have wrestled a few indie matches in the past and worked for former WCW, WWE referee Nick Patrick, which is pretty cool. Nick Patrick was a damn good ref. I think for WWE, 6'3" is probably too tall. And I hate saying that, but I think that probably is going to be their take on that. Not that I think that it's necessarily too tall, but I think that's going to be their opinion. I think on TV, they're probably going to want the wrestlers to stand out. And, especially when you have somebody, I mean, heck, like Roxanne, Perez, Julia, some of the women that, about 5 feet, 5'1", you probably wouldn't be refereeing those matches and send somebody else in. You'd probably be in there with, much larger guys, and they'd want the referee to probably be shorter to make those guys look even bigger. On the indies, on the other hand, I probably don't see it being a problem. I can't really speak for AEW. I don't know nearly as much about AEW and their like backstage policies and preferences and things, but I would think it would probably be the same over there. I don't know. But either way, I'd say go for it if you want to try it. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right? Yeah.
And Nate, I think with regard to that, if you're good enough, like you hit the nail on the head. What you don't want is the ref looking bigger, less in the women's case, but certainly more in the men's case, when a lot of these guys are billed to be 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and they're not. Their risers and their boots are what give them that. And here would be someone like CJ or myself who's 6'4". You don't want the ref to be bigger than the guys, because then why are the guys special? But I have learned enough from my time in theater and around that CJ, if you're good enough and you've got the stuff, they can position you in that ring for like force perspective, where now it's not as big of an issue as it was. So I would say that much. But I can also say, having gone to several NXT live events, I was surprised at how big Drew McIntyre looks on television, and I was easily 2 inches taller than him when he like walked by me in the front row. And so it certainly then would make sense about why you would want referees who can make 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" guys look 6'7", 6'8". So
I had that same kind of a moment with Nikita Lyons. Like, I was front row, and on TV, Nikita looks, like she's this big, monster compared to a lot of the other women, and then she walks right past me, and I'm only 5'9", so and I easily had a few inches on her, and so it was like, so yeah, TV. It's funny how TV kind of forces that perspective in your head. But all right, well, I think everybody, thank you guys for such a lively chat here tonight. Good to see everybody, and very happy that we were able to kind of have this nice discussion with everybody here tonight. So thank you all for joining. I'm Nate Lindberg. You can check the things I do out at natelindberg.com. Kevin, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Cattani. You can find me all over the Twitter and Blue Sky sphere at KP Cattani. For those of you in the chat who are longer time listeners, you know that I love interacting, so please come say hi. And yeah, it's just always a pleasure to be on with you, Nate and Jobin. We can cross our bingo card slot off on doing a show together.
Absolutely.
And hopefully this isn't the last time we get to do it.
Oh, I highly doubt that. We just need to have Nate remember to invite both of us next time.
And not 12 minutes before the show starts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, hey, now that we've done it, the idea will be in my head. So there we go. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right. Jobin, appreciate it. Appreciate you jumping in last minute. And we're going to leave you with one final thing. As Ryan Solario in the chat says, horseshoe. Take care.